Hello, welcome to Bartleby's Wall. I'm Chris and I wanted to do a quick first impressions video of this, the latest role-playing game to carry the Conan name. So it's based on the works of Robert E. Howard. Full name is Conan the Hyborian Age, and it was produced after a successful Kickstarter last year. It actually arrived a couple of months ago now. Haven't played it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. So too long, don't want to watch the whole thing. Yes, I like the looks of it. I have a couple of reservations. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through this rulebook first. We'll take a look at what it's like. We'll talk over what the contents is. I'll give you an idea what the system looks like in terms of how it plays. And then afterwards, I back the Kickstarter to the adventurer level tier. So I've got a bunch of other bits and pieces as well. I'll go a very quick run through that. So, Conan, the Hyborian Age, the role-playing game core book. We're in at a not particularly hefty 220 pages for a full core rulebook. This is a beautifully produced book, gloss and full colour throughout, with a lot of very nice illustrations. And most of these I haven't seen before. A few of them, particularly the creature illustrations, do seem to have come from the board game that they produced as a result of a previous Kickstarter several years ago. So we see a lot of these, but yeah, nicely illustrated throughout and well laid out. It's a really nice rule book. Comes with two of these little ribbons to mark your place. So that's what it looks like. The front cover there, another nice piece of artwork. What's inside? Well, as with many role-playing games, it starts with a what is role-playing game? What is a role-playing game? And then moves on to a little couple of paragraphs about the legacy of Conan and what is Hyboria like, and it gives us a brief overview of what the Hyborian Age is, and so a summary of some of the important locations and characters from Conan's world. And after that, we swing straight into character generation. Character generation is pretty simple, and that is a watchword for a lot of this game. It's pretty simple. This is quite a light game compared to a lot of other ones I've read. And so for character generation, first thing you do is you choose an origin. The origin is where your character comes from. So from the hills, for example, from the streets, from the steppes. Now, this of course aren't very specific. It doesn't say from Shadazar or from Turan. They say from a generalized area, and you decide where particular place your character comes from. This is nice, of course, because this means if you want to use this, if you like this game and you want to use a system to do primeval full or set it in your own homebrew sword and sorcery setting, then it's readily available for you to do so. You just from the streets means from the streets. Each of these character origins includes a little bit of a quote from Howard's works. It includes a little bit of flavor text and includes this little block down here, the rules. These are pretty straightforward, just simple, a bonus of some sort. So for this case, a bonus to edge checks and attacks, beginning with a particular skill. Also a number of life points, and also what sorcery the character has access to. Now there are 10 in all, from the steppes, from the north, from the wild, and then we move into the second group of 5. I group these ones separately because 5 of them there, no sorcery. 5 of them have access to some sort of sorcery. So from a civilized land, from parts unknown, from the blood of Jebel Sag, from the blood of Acheron, and from the blood of a demon, all have access to some kind of sorcery skill. So for example, for the blood of Jebel Sag here, it says that they can buy sorcery skills from the alchemy or the white magic disciplines. Now I'll come on to those in just a moment, but what that means is that 5 out of 10 of your character types will have access to some sort of sorcery. I felt a little bit funny about that when I first went into it. I tended to feel in Conan and Sword and Sorcery games that player character sorcery should be something that's a bit in the background, perhaps maybe one sorcerer, possibly 2 in a large group. This does seem to encourage quite a large amount of potentially sorcerer characters. But however, each of these characters don't have to take sorcery if you've got from the blood of Jebel Sag. It has this additional benefit that when you gain life points, you gain 2 additional life points. So that's a really really nice extra thing to have as well. So if you have from one of these sorcerers backgrounds, you don't have to take sorcery, but you're losing a lot of life points, and at least some of your potential bonuses are going to be related to sorcery, so I would think you probably want to. This from the Blood of a Demon, everything is sorcery. Once you've chosen your origin, you then distribute stat points. Characters in this use 4 attributes to measure their capabilities. We have might, edge, grit, and wit. You get 16 points to spend. You have to put at least 1 into each of them, and you can't put it higher than 6. That's it. So you could put 4 in each and be very flat, or you could, make yourself strong. I don't have to explain this to you, really, do I? The point being is that maximum of 6. Now, through training, it is possible to put them up by a further 2. It says you can put them up to a maximum of 8. Though notice that if you start with 4, your maximum is going to be 6 because you can only put them up by a certain amount. So you can only put them up by 2. So if you start with 6, you can go up to 8. But if you start with just 1, you're never going to get above 3. Once you've chosen your stat points, then you're on to other values. These are derived from the stat points. Your physical defense, sorcery defense, life points, that's your hit points. And then you've got stamina points and flex dice. Stamina points, well, that is a meta currency. Each character starts with 4. You can get more through good role playing, through doing exceptional deeds and so forth. But you spend it to be able to do extraordinary things, powerful attacks, succeed when you would have failed, that sort of thing. It's the meta currency that the player has access to make their character just that little bit more heroic than most characters in the world. And you also have a thing called a flex dice. Now, this is going to come to this in the system in a moment, but you start with a default of a d10, and then you can improve that by making it lower. Because every time you make a skill check, not only are you going to roll your main dice, you're also going to roll your flex dice. And if that comes up with what I term an ace, I think I got that from Savage Worlds, the highest value, so a 10 on a d10, an 8 on a d8, a 6 on a d6. Whenever you roll that, then that creates a sort of special event as well. So that creates something cool happens, kind of a critical hit or something along those lines. Once you've done that, then you've got your other values, then you're going to choose your starting skills. Now, this is one of the points on the side here. You see, when I saw starting skills, I immediately thought of the many games I have here that have skill lists. You have your athletic skill and your melee combat skill, or your sword skill if it's more finely grained than that, or your law skill and your skill in different kinds of laws and so forth. These are a bit different. This, for example, Born in the Saddle, so they can ignore that character with this ability can ignore the penalty for firing from horseback, or Eagle Eye, you increase your damage of your ranged attack by +1, or Pantherish, you can spend a stamina point, remember those, to re-roll a failed check or an attack roll. These all kind of look more to me like almost like feats or talents or something like that in other games. There's no actual list of skills. Your characters have this set of stats, and they're basically assumed to be competent heroic characters who can do stuff. So if they need to climb something, then they're going to use their might or their edge. If they need to endure a storm, they're going to use their grit. There's no separate endure skill or anything like that. So that's kind of it for generating your character. Finally, you select starting equipment, and then your backstory, and you're good to go. So like I say, it's quite light, and I worry maybe it's a little bit too light for some people's taste, but the watchword here, I think, is fast and fun. This is a game that's designed to get you quickly into the action and to emulate the stories of how it works. And from all the accounts I've heard so far, it does that very well. And these characters are going to certainly be larger than life, I think, as you go forward. Next page, we come on to the rules. Now, the rules are, again, very simple. It's a simple roll over target number game system with the extra addition of the flex dice. So when you're going to do a check, you're going to roll your characteristic. And I just said a minute ago that your characteristic is a simple number between 1 and 6. In actual fact, it's a dice and a number. So you're choosing that. And you're also going to have a dice associated with that attribute. So it always will start as a d6. All characters start with a d6. However, you can improve that with experience. So as you level up through gaining more of those skills, there are a lot more than that starting list, you will have an opportunity to improve your dice from a dice 6 to a d8 to a d10. So you roll your dice, starting to always be a d6, and then you'll add your modifier, which will be, as I say, on average 4, and you're going to try and reach a target number. Target numbers listed down here, so a moderate target number being seen to be around 7 to 9. A legendary one being 13 plus. So that's it. It's a simple rollover system. I did mention the flex dice. So every time you roll a check, you're going to roll your flex dice. Now that'll start at a D10 unless you take the special skill that reduces it to a D8. And anytime that D10 comes up with a 10 or the D8 comes up with an 8, then that's going to create one of these effects here. So you'll gain a stamina point, or you'll be able to call it a success even if the dice roll itself failed. If you're carrying out a sorceress action, then it'll reduce the number of points you have to spend. You could do sorcery, you have to spend your stamina points or life points. That actually prevents that from you having to do that. And also massive damage. So of course, critical hit. What would a Conan game be without huge, massive damage blows? Then discusses quickly how you modify your checks. Excuse me. And it uses again, simply abstract it. Rather than giving you a big list of modifiers, it simply talks about the rule of three. And what in this context is, if something's benefiting the player character when they're acting, then the GM simply assesses it a minor help, major help, or very major help, and picks 1, 2, or 3, or minus 1, 2, or 3 if it's going the other way. So that again, encouragement on the GM to keep it simple and to play it fairly fast and loose. And as I say, I think that's again part of the ethos of this game. Savage Worlds calls itself fast, furious, and fun, and I certainly agree with that. This, I think, fits into the same category. This is designed to be fast and furious, to get you into your Conan sword and sorcery style stories and to just keep it moving. Next chapter is a little section on combat, and it is an extension of the core system. You work the combat in combat rounds, you roll for initiative using your edge stat, and then everyone goes in order. You get, each player character will get 2 actions on their turn, and that can be move, attack, focused attack, defend, cast a spell, manipulate, anything else. GM choice, you know how many actions you're going to take. A focus attack being a more effective attack than a normal attack, that takes up both your actions. And you can do what you want on those. So you can move twice, attack twice, move, attack, move, however you want to. The creatures, when we come to it, will generally get a number of actions between 2 and, well, more than the really powerful ones, making them more dangerous. Talks here basically about range and area. Now, this is a point of interest. Now, this is mainly designed for theatre of the mind games. It's not necessarily expecting you to use a map of some sort on the table and miniatures. However, it does in actual fact have an optional process here which uses tokens or miniatures onto an area-based map. So this, quite clearly, if you've seen the board game, you'd recognize this. This is one of the maps from the board. And these are tokens from the board, and the board game's got all these miniatures. If you've got the board game, then you can certainly use them very easily within this game. It's very much that's kind of what the area is aimed at. However, you definitely don't need it. If you've got a set of maps already that you want to use, you just have to put some areas on top of it. So because it uses area-based movement and ranges and things like that. So yeah, use any old maps you want to, or just sketch it out on a bit of paper if that's how you roll. But if you've got the board game, then yeah, it's a nice addition as well, but far from essential. Attacks and damage then. So damage is inflicted if you're making an attack. Your target number will be, looking at the pick characters here, so a target number will be their physical defense. So a target number to hit one of these picks would be a range of 5 to 7, the champion's 9 to 11, so much harder to hit. They also got a magical defense number as well, and a number of wounds. You roll to get that number or higher, and then if you succeed, you do the amount of damage you do according to your weapon and strength. So here we got a list of weapons. Melee weapons, you simply roll a dice between a d4 and a d12, and you add your strength. For missile weapons, you just roll a weapon's damage. For ranged weapons like bows, slings, and crossbows, you just roll weapons damage. You get to add 1, but you don't get to add your strength to that as well. Which means, on balance, I expect you find that melee weapons tend to be somewhat more devastating in the hands of strong fighters. I think that's probably a deliberate design choice. One I've noticed in other Conan-based games as well, a lot of fantasy games in actual fact. Brief section on armor here. Armor is simply absorbs damage when you take it. So again, it's all pretty simple. Life, death, and the fate of will here. Main thing here is if your character is drained down to 0 life points, then you're out of action. You get to make a grit check. If you make that grit check, then you will come back. As you see, grit check, then will come back with 1 health. If you fail, however, then you have died heroically. So you get 1 shot, so it's fairly unforgiving. Enemy works slightly differently. I'll cover those. I'll come to the monster section in just a moment. And then a little section there on recovery, some additional bits and pieces, all designed to keep things simple. Sorcery is handled like a bunch more skills, basically. So we take a look at these pages. Each of the types of sorcery has a 2-page spread. So let's go to one of them, pick necromantic magic, for example. If a character wants to do that, then you've got these skills. Remember the skills we saw before? You get a few experience points when you first start your character off to get a few. Well, if you decide to choose necromantic magic as your sorcery style, then you can pick these as well, or instead of some of the other basic ones. These are the major spells. Each one of them comes with an experience cost and a description of what it does. Some of them are simple straight attacks, and some of them are raised skeleton warriors and things like that, some more powerful ones. If you actually go to white magic, for example, so they can summon a beast of some sort, and in actual fact in demonic magic, at the highest levels you can summon a horror, which is really quite a powerful creature, and that's going to cost you 2 stamina points and 12 life points, which is a lot. But on the other hand, it's kind of worth it. When you first get a piece of a spell from one of the magic types, you automatically get these as well. These are inherent spells or inherent abilities. So the for instance, necromantic magic, you would get Death Sight. You're able to determine precisely how a person or animal died. You get Chilling Presence, where you can lower the temperature. So these are more role-playing orientated. They're certainly not useful in combat, but they're useful in general, and they're a nice little touch. Your character will get that. So the sorcerer's attacks are generally made through an attack roll, same as we were talking about just earlier, using your wits characteristic. And similar to everything else in this game, it's a simple system that is not going to cause anyone too much difficulty getting used to it. It provides enough here to keep people going for a while, I think. There's a good selection of magical styles. And that's it for the rules, basically. After that, we have a brief section on game mastery, some suggestions on how to handle creating your own adventures, and then we have the improving your characteristic. And then recall those talent things called skills that we had earlier. How you improve your character is there's a whole bunch more of them. You can take the ones that you didn't take from the starting list, or you can go for these, or you can go for more spells, of course, if you're a spell using type. The skills here are where you start to get some of your really serious improvements. For example, you can increase your life points, and in here you've also got the ability, this is where you increase your stats, increase your might stat by 1, increase your wit stat by 1, increase your grit stat by 1, and each of them has 2 of those. So I mentioned earlier you can increase each characteristic by 2 by taking both of those. Additionally, you've got increased might stat dice from d6 to d8, so that's how you get the more powerful dice. But I didn't mention in the rules, you only, if your skill ability is high enough that 1 plus your value still makes it, you still miss on a 1. 1 is always a miss. So moving that dice d6 up to a d8 or a d10 is quite useful, because of course that means you're going to roll 1s less often. After this, we then come into the monsters section, and here we've got all the creatures, and there is a good selection here. I've got to say, I like this a lot. There's tons of options for you to go for here. There's plenty for you to set up your own adventures. There's plenty of things to challenge your player characters. There's more afflicting, there's more stuff there is. Now, I mentioned earlier, I was just saying a little bit about it, so we just skim back, I'm doing it very inactly, to the Pit Warriors. The defenses that they have are given as a range. So physical defense for a Pit Hunter is 5 to 7. That's the value you have to get above to hit them, and that range is such that the GM can tune it to your characters. So if it's a new group of characters or relatively not that many player characters, then set to 5. On the other hand, if they're more experienced, they're more challenging picked hunters, so they might have the 7. And this is universal throughout the whole of the game. All the creatures have this kind of range on them. So if the powerful summoner creature or necromancer person that you meet is and your less experienced characters, then they've got the lower end, so software defense of 10, physical defense of 5. On the other hand, use the higher values of your player characters are more competent, I suppose, is one way of putting it. One important detail here is some of the creatures are not as minions or antagonists. Minions don't have health points, they have, or life points, so they have a threshold. So this pick champion is an antagonist. He has life points, same as a player. So when the player hits them, they roll their damage value, and then that's subtracted from this guy's life points. When it gets to 0, he's down and out. Minions, on the other hand, have a threshold. It's simply, if you do that much damage in a single blow, then they're taken out. If you don't do that much damage in a single blow, then they're wounded, they're marked as wounded, and next time they hit, they are taken out anyway. It's a simple way of handling larger numbers. I haven't tried it in action yet, but it seems like it's a good abstraction as a mechanism for handling numerous minions. Then each character has their attacks, and finally they've all got special abilities of some sort. So from the relatively innocuous to the fairly fearsome. So a veteran bandit applies a +1 modifier to stealth. A vampire inflicts 6 or more damage in a single melee attack with its fangs, makes a grit check, or have a -1 to all subsequent rolls. So yeah, the nice variety of creatures and abilities here. We then go into the history of the Hyborian Age, which is exactly what it says on the tin. Nice little section on that. And then we have a gazetteer of the Hyborian Age as well, in which we go through. We have this rather nice map, of which is a larger version in the Kickstarter extras, and a quick goes through each of the major regions, locations, and kingdoms to help you get a feel for the place. And at the end of this, finally, we have 3 tales to get you started. Each tale is marked with a crow. This is the crow system that they use. So simple adventure has 1 crow, moderate adventure has 2 crows, complex adventure has 3 crows. What 3 crows means, it's more complicated. The GM's going to have to do more preparation and probably more thinking on their feet, as it has more complex moving parts. A single 1 crow story tends to be fairly linear with a single major location. A 3 crow story tends to be more complex, simple as that. And there's 3 adventures here. Each one's quite a nice simple one. You'll notice that in the text here, where they've got creatures and antagonists, they're not referring back to the creatures section here. They're actually putting new stuff in. So giant scorpion broodmother, that's something new, and that's something that goes on in the adventure books that I got in the Kickstarter as well. So yeah, overall, fine then. That is the Conan the Hyborian Age rulebook, bar one thing, advanced rules. This was a Kickstarter extra. I nearly forgot it, I'll confess. Yeah, I was about to forget it. The advanced rules were a Kickstarter extra. When we got to a certain point, they said, well, we're going to write in some advanced rules. What they are, advanced skills, simply that's 10 more skills that your character can take when they're developing themselves. You're up to experience cost of 12 for getting your flex dice all the way down to a D4. So that's quite powerful. And then it also has a section on fighting styles as well. So if your character is primarily an archer or using 2-handed weapons or dual wielding, then it gives you stances basically. Any character can use these. So I can imagine if you decide to use these, I'll get used quite a lot. They're a nice little extra touch. So that is the Conan the Hyborian Age cool rulebook. Everything you need to play Conan the Hyborian Age. And yeah, on the whole, my overall impression is very positive. It seems very slick. It seems like a nice, simple game system. You're going to get into it quickly and it's going to move along fast, which I like, with all features I very much like. The combat looks fairly straightforward. My only slight reservation is I do like players to have something to do when they are told they're being hit. So when I say to a player, right, Jothran is being attacked by a goblin, I then say, right, you've been hit and you take so much damage. Of course, we're all used to it. That happens all the time. That's what we do in D&D. That's what we do in numerous other games. I do quite like some of the pack. But then it'd be very easy to turn this or any other game that does that into a player-facing combat system. So it's barely a criticism so much as a mild preference on my part. I've yet to try it. I do worry perhaps it's a little bit too light for some people's tastes. But I think it looks like a lot of fun. I look forward to giving it a go, and I actually have a slot booked in to run this for a extended session on a weekend over the in the new year. So once I've done that, I might just put up a little follow-up video to this just to say how it played out in combat, in the actual in actual play. So that's the rule book. Take a look at the rest of this. So these are the other Kickstarter bits, and if you don't want to see these, this is where you switch off. Kickstarter extras, of course, it included dice. Everything includes dice. We always get more dice, and I've already said how many. I've got too many. Nice dice bag with an embroidered on Wheel of Pain. This is the Wheel of Pain emblem used by the game. Embroidered on, so it's not going to wear off like some of the things that I've seen. Dice themselves, actually really nice. I particularly like this set. This is the main set. So it's a standard set of 6 polyhedrals. Haven't unfortunately included a percentile one. The game doesn't use them. Might have been a nice touch to include a percent dice as well. But apart from that, no complaints about these dice at all. They're really nice, and they might actually become part of my regular suite of dice that I use. They have a Wheel of Pain symbol, you'll notice, on their ace face, their highest face. Then these ones here as well, these are intended for use as the flex dice, hence it doesn't go up as high as D12. There's just 4 of these. Again, 4 nice dice. So that's the dice. GM screen, nice piece of artwork on one side, and lots of useful information on the inside. Everything you're going to need really to keep you going. Like I say, it's a simple game. One thing though, it is really, really nice, sturdy feeling piece of kit. So like that. Now I'm going to jump through this now and find, with the GM screen you get this GM screen and companion. This primarily, this is the companion, and the main bulk of it is random tables for making adventures. And there's tons of stuff here. If you want to use it, use it. If you don't, don't. But random tables for where your adventure takes place in the world, and whether is it in a castle or a workshop, is it busy or haunted. There's tons of stuff here. You can construct a complete random adventure or just use it for inspiration. So yeah, I quite like this. When trying to create an adventure, you can easily stare through, and you've got plenty of monsters to work with in the main book. Now, when we come to the last section, however, this is something here. We've got magic items, ensorcelled artifacts, we've got legendary artifacts, magical paraphernalia, tomes and manuscripts, and because of the lotus section, that's some rules for using lotuses, lotus plants, lotus flowers in your game. These are all major parts of any fantasy game, of course, the magic items and things like that. Bit of a shame this didn't find its way into the main rulebook in actual fact, but yeah, this is nice. This is nice. Good stuff. And then finally, a little bit on how to create an adventure. Skimming on next, Tales of the Hyborian Age. This is one of the 2 adventure books that came with it. Here's the other one, Tales of the Hyborian Age, Volume 2. So if you just open that up, we can see that we've got this mini campaign, Storm Under Tarantia. Now, I'm going to admit to you, I've not read all these scenarios in any level of detail yet, but they seem good. It's certainly stuck up to the same level of production as the main rule book, with lots of lovely artwork and well plotted out in terms of maps and places to go. And again, you're not going to have to refer back to the main rule book all the time. You've got all your characters and NPCs and adversaries, monsters, right there in the text as well. So that's going to give you even more monsters and characters to work with if you feel like you need more. In terms of adventures, it includes this mini campaign, A Storm Under Tarantia, and then 6 more scenarios of varying levels of complexity. I have read the Doom that came with the Devil Tour, because I saw it was a 1-star and it's really short. It's a simple, short little, like almost a vignette that would fit nicely into another campaign. And some of these look interesting scenarios. Some of them look potentially quite linear, but again, some of them look very varied. But they look like a lot of fun. As I say, I haven't run any of them yet, so I can't comment too much. Volume 2 is more of the same. So this time you've got a dozen or so scenarios here. Each one, a variety of settings, a variety of places, a variety of parts of the world, and a variety of complexity as well. It's got a couple of 1 crow, a couple of 2 crows. Most of these are 3 crows. Finally, I think that's about it really. The final things are I've got this map. This is a large copy of the map that was in the rule book. Yeah, it's lovely. This, you can stick this in the frame and put it on your wall. Love this. Yeah, it's really good. Nice visualization of the world of Hyboria. This envelope here contains some of the extra Kickstarter extras. I'm not going to get the contents out. It's simply a lot of postcard-sized maps and some pieces of the artwork that you'll have seen already on the covers of the rule book. And then lastly, give you some reference sheets. So encounter sheets, character sheets, and the player reference sheets. And that's just simple rule summary for the players. That's it then. That's Conan the Hyborian Age. As I said at the end of the rulebook, I look forward to giving it a go at running it, and I have a slot booked. I'm going to be running it in the new year. I might put a little after action report, as I say, on for that as well. If you played it and you've got any further thoughts, I'd love to hear about it. Please stick that in the comments. But for now, that's me signing off.